And I think a lot of people who go into it completely blind really think, well, this is the most misogynist movie I've ever seen.
Right.
But stick it out, because it is not.
He's got that face you just want to punch. But it had the cast. It had very positive reviews. It had good word of mouth from everybody that did see it.
Yeah.
But yet no one really went to see it.
No.
Okay, right here, if we were still using theme songs, we'd probably be going with Pink Floyd's Dogs.
That's right, we would.
Not Who Let the Dogs Out.
No.
No, not at all. We're going to talk about dogs today. Welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast, and she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we are from madwolf.com. Where did we get the idea to talk about dogs?
I think that might actually be our own idea.
Really?
I'm not sure I stole that from anybody, but I know that Pink Paradox is all about it. She's very excited about the dogs. We're going to do cats, too, but we're going to do cats and associated with one of our live podcasts because of a movie that we're showing.
Okay, cool.
So we're splitting them up.
Well, here's the crazy thing, actually the sad story. You have never had a dog.
I love dogs.
As a pet.
I love dogs.
Yeah.
I've always
You've never
wanted
had one.
No, growing up, so as you know, we're the youngest of 6 children. My parents were tired of children, let alone pets, by the time they had my twin sister and me. So we were not allowed to have pets when we were little.
Yeah.
You and I have always lived in apartments. The best we could do for a while when our son was little was a cat. We did have a cat, Zappa, which was literally the only pet I have ever had in my life is that cat. I want a dog so bad. George. And for a long time, we never thought about it because of our jobs and everything. And we were, because of the movies at night, we were never ever home. But now I work from home, and I'm like, well, we're getting a dog. But we don't own our house.
Unfortunately, we don't own the house, and we're not allowed to get one right now. We will one day. When I was growing up, we had a few dogs here and there, but that's a sad story.
Is it Baron? Is that the one that you had to hide? You had to hide dog treats because it was so big for you to be all Flintstones excited when you got home and knock you down because you were little.
When I was a little kid, we had a gigantic Saint Bernard named Baron, and it would jump on me so bad when I was usually the first one home. And it would jump on me, and it was huge, and I was not. And I would hide little dog biscuits or whatever, dog treats. So I'd throw one, and as went to chase one, I could get in the house.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that story.
It was a great dog. We actually had to give it away to a farmer because it really was too big for, like, the suburbs, the city. It was humongous. But a cool dog. So, yeah. Play the violins for Hope. She never had the pet. She never had...
5 siblings, they all have dogs. Everybody but me and my family has a dog.
Well, you and your sister, your twin sister.
Joy has a dog.
Oh, she does now.
Yes, they all.
But growing up.
As adults, they all have dogs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she's got Sunny.
Yeah, she does.
Right.
We love Sunny.
Okay, so, we'll move past that sadness. In fact, I think you can draw on it. You can, use it as motivation as we talk about these scary dogs. And before we do that, we want to say thanks to the turnout and thanks to the feedback that we got for Vehicular Horror. Yeah. And we actually had some good feedback because we had one big one that we forgot, or did we intentionally leave it off?
No, here's the thing. As you know, so we did Vehicular Horror, and there were so many that we sort of subcategorized. So we did one that was an airplane, and one that was a car chase, and one that was cars, and blah, blah, blah. And the fact of the matter is, I had always had Maximum Overdrive in the long list, but it really fits in almost everything because it's got all manner of machinery. And then I just never wound up slotting it in. It wasn't going to make the top 5 at all because...
But we'd have mentioned it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned it. And right away, I mean, I don't even think the movie was over and people were like, where's Maximum Overdrive? And Monty said it first, and then Old Man Spencer right away was all in agreement, and I apologize, and especially just for that truck, for that Goblin truck. It should have been on there.
Yep. And the AC/DC tunage.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. And also Death Race 2000.
No, that's right, Tom.
Yeah.
Tom was hoping to see that.
That's a good one, too.
Is that a horror movie? Although I did include a lot of films that are technically not horror films, so.
Yeah, and it's fun. I remember seeing that.
Oh, yeah. The Carpenter one, they remade that. Remember that? With Statham, right? Was Jason Statham in it?
I think so, yeah. No, I remember seeing the original
Joan Allen?
back at the Cruise Inn when I was a kid.
Wow.
The drive, it was a double feature with I don't know what all. But probably carload night, and we crammed everybody in the car and went out there. So, so there's a couple of omissions, not malicious omissions.
No.
So.
No, there was we covered a lot. And actually, what I don't think we did was thank Paul. It was his idea. Forever ago, probably 2 years ago, he said, we should do a planes, trains, and automobiles one. And I thought, that's a great idea. So, and I didn't thank him last time we were there, so.
Okay, well, thanks, Paul. And also, before we forget, thanks to Jordan, our friend Jordan. He put a real nice post on his social media just recommending the Fright Club podcast to everybody for the Halloween season, just to check out all the old episodes, find out what interests you. And it was really, really nice. So thank you, Jordan, as we look forward to the next episode of Fright Club Live, which is November the 13th.
We're going to show the 2006 movie Them, or Ills.
Oh, yes.
Which is such an incredibly tense cat and mouse movie. I'm very excited to see it.
And pretty quick.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's I think it's only 80 minutes long.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about traveling abroad, because that is a fertile topic in horror.
Yes, indeed. So that'll be November 13th, Gateway Film Center, Columbus, Ohio. Make it if you can, as we turn our attention to the dogs, the pooches, the puppies in scary movies. And we've got, we do have 6, don't we? We have Fuzzy Math. So you want to start out right there at number 6. This is, one of our favorite movies all around, from 2011, when a successful country lawyer captures and attempts to civilize the last remaining member of a violent clan that has roamed the Northwest coast for decades. He puts the lives of his family in jeopardy. It's The Woman.
This is our project, and it's a secret.
What are we gonna do with her?
We're gonna help her. We're gonna train her, civilize her, free her from herself, from her baser instincts.
Do you really think we should be doing this? Do we really get to keep her?
We do.
I'm not saying that movie description is inaccurate. It is technically accurate. It's just so funny that it makes it seem as if he's the hero.
It's a lighthearted romp. Yeah, actually this is, and we've talked about it before. It has a really dark, comedic, subversive streak about it.
It does. It really does.
Especially with Chris Kleek.
Yes.
His face. It's got one of those faces, and he's great, don't get me wrong.
Oh, he's so great.
The actor, and his name is...
Sean Bridgers?
Yeah, Sean Bridgers. He's got that face you just want to punch. But, in this movie especially,
it's so perfect.
It's always smirking.
Oh, yeah.
He's just going to be I'm in charge here.
That's
I'm the
right.
man among all these women, and you're my pet now.
Yeah.
And, you just want to strangle him. But it's perfect for this part.
It is.
And it's one of the reasons it has this really dark, comedic streak about it.
And it's a film that, if you haven't seen it, it takes some getting used to. And I think a lot of people who go into it completely blind really think, well, this is the most misogynist movie I've ever seen.
Right, it's not.
And that's the point. It's trying to, but stick it out, because it is not. And Pollyanna McIntosh, of course, who we adore, is the woman. But the reason that this made this list, and you know what? I actually think this, as many times as we've talked about this movie, I don't think we've ever discussed the dog before.
Right, which is sort of... you want to tiptoe around it
a little
because
bit.
it can be spoiler territory.
Yeah, because it's not one of those. It's not like it's a 40-year-old film.
Right,
it came out this
right.
decade, and it's not one that many people have seen, and so we hate to spoil it.
Right.
Which makes it tough. But when they, it's funny, they talk about the dog periodically throughout the movie in sort of this family
Did
conversation.
you feed the dog?
Right.
Yeah.
The son, who's also great, Zach Rand, he is so good. Nobody ever wants to feed the dog, and all of a sudden, once they have the woman out in the shed, Zach Rand wants to go. He wants to feed the dog. Oh, I haven't spent any time with the dog. They just keep talking about it. And then, in the last reel of the film, you're introduced to the dog.
Yeah.
Well, the teacher is. And
Yeah.
you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's, I guess, as far as we'll go.
Yeah, I think so. Because we talked about it before we started taping.
Yeah.
Like, how committed are we
Right,
to, and
right.
I just think you're right. We shouldn't spoil it because not enough people have seen the movie.
Yeah, and then the dog is involved in the finale as well.
Yes.
So maybe that's a good reason why it's just number 6,
Right.
outside the top 5 here. So, but if you haven't seen it and you don't know what we're talking about, we urge you, for not just for that, but for many reasons.
Yeah, for many reasons.
to,
We love that movie.
To see The Woman from 2011. So we'll leave it at that. But actually, you had a couple of others written down here as far as dogs as important characters in the story.
Yeah, they don't stand for something. It's not just, it's a scary dog or, And there are a couple that I think are really worth mentioning. Crawl.
Yeah.
Everybody loves that dog.
Yeah.
You love Sugar. Was that his name?
Which is just out. Crawl is just out on a home video this week.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about it on our other podcast, The Screening Room. about the new home video releases, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the greatest movie in the world, but it's a nice, fun creature feature. It's taught about the action. You do have to suspend some disbelief, but yeah, there's a great dog character.
There is. You love him. Or Sugar. And the whole time, it's like, every time you see the gators, you're like, where's Sugar? Is Sugar okay? I love that dog. And then also, the Raw. There's a point in the movie Raw where that dog just looks at the sisters like, are you seriously doing this to me? And you're like, I guess he's getting screwed out of this one. This is a bad. And the whole family knows it's not true, but that poor dog. Anyway, it wasn't enough for him to get his own slot, but I felt like he deserved it. He deserved to mention that poor dog.
Definitely. Two movies worth checking out.
Yes.
And great dog characters, Crawl and Raw. So we'll move from Fuzzy Math right up to the top 5. The one at number 5 in our Scary Dogs countdown from 1983. It's a friendly St. Bernard. We just talked about one. I had one.
That's right. It's
but no,
Barron.
It's not Barron. This one contracts rabies and conducts a reign of terror on a small American town. Of course, it's Cujo.
Nothing that lives in the imagination is more frightening than the terror that lives in Castle Rock, Maine.
Cujo? Can he eat his way in here? Can he?
Now there's a new name for terror. Cujo.
Now, in talking about this one, it starts a theme that is going to carry over through a lot of these movies. In filming it, the biggest problem they had was that the real dogs they used, were just too friendly.
Yes, which especially in this movie because it's a small child, right? It's that's in peril in this film that you do hire a very sweet dog, but it's so hard not to get the dog's tail wagging.
Exactly
in
right.
the scenes.
Yeah, in fact, they had 5 St. Bernards that they used, 1 mechanical head, and a guy in a dog costume. But yeah, the real St. Bernards were much too friendly, and they had to tie the tails down to their legs because they'd constantly be wagging the tail. Although, as you just mentioned, there are times where it was missed in the editing room, and you do see, especially some shots from behind, attacks that the dog is wagging the tail. And
I'm so happy to be attacking these people right now.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And then I think the other thing with this one, as you've mentioned before, they use Caro syrup to create the foam.
Yeah.
And the dogs are all just licking their because why wouldn't you? It's just this sweet goop all over their faces.
Yeah, and they had to do things like to make most of the St. Bernards they used attack the car. They put their favorite dog toys inside the car. And they were telling, come on. So then, when they're attacking the car, they're all in play mode. So yeah, they did have some challenges there, and not that you can kind of tell.
You can.
Besides the tail wagging that got through, but still, that's one case where you'll just have to go with it because there are some scares. In fact, this features one, at least in some interviews, that Stephen King himself has said he thinks it's one of the best scares in all of the movie adaptations of his work. It's when the first time when Cujo first leaps at the passenger window of the car.
Yeah.
Kind of gets everybody's attention.
Yeah. And it's funny, it's a Pinto. So even
it is a Pinto.
And so you're like, that dog is bigger than that car, so you're in trouble there, and then Dee Wallace is always, she's very reliable in these types of movies. She does a great job of making you believe this character because it's like she doesn't think she's better than the material. She's absolutely, I am this unfaithful wife in this shitty car and my husband's out of town and I'm not really happy with my life right now and everything is a pain in the ass and everything is on her last nerve and then she's like, oh my God, look, this is much more important. There's a massive dog trying to eat my son and me.
Yeah, and Stephen King was inspired to write this story apparently when he met his mechanic's intimidating dog while having his motorcycle repaired one day. That actually happened to me one time years ago. I was at a mechanic's shop and there was a really intimidating dog, just kind of a guard dog. And yeah, that can be scary because you don't know when to make a move.
Yeah.
Even when the owner is right there. So he took that inspiration and wrote Cujo, and I did not. But I'm happy to talk about it.
It's definitely not my favorite King adaptation. And I remember when I saw it the first time, I just outright didn't like it when I saw it when I was a kid. I just didn't like it at all. I revisited it as an adult, and it's a little bit like when I saw, I mean, I loved Poltergeist when I saw it the first time, but when I saw it the first time, I was a little kid, and I really saw it from the perspective of Carol Ann.
Sure.
When I
Yeah.
saw it as an adult, first of all, I realized that Jo Beth Williams was amazing, and it was so much more gut-wrenching as an adult with a child to
Yeah.
watch that movie.
Yeah.
To a lesser degree, Cujo is the same thing.
Yep.
You know, when I was a kid, I was thinking of myself as the boy with asthma who's trapped inside the car, and then as an adult, when you can see it through Dee Wallace's eyes, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. And it's a lot more gut-wrenching for me as an adult to watch the film.
Boy, how many times has that device been used? A child with
Yeah.
asthma or some sort of breathing
Oh, yeah,
treatment
yeah.
or needs some sort of medicine.
Sometimes it's good, though. Signs. They did a nice
Signs,
job of it in Signs.
Panic Room.
Oh, yeah, Panic
They've
Room.
used it, yeah.
No, it happens a lot.
Well, and it instantly, as you just mentioned, it ties into the fears
Yeah.
that parents have. They can't protect their children,
Yeah.
and that's such a primal instinct for a parent. And it's interesting that you bring that up, how a movie will change for you when you see it different times of your life,
Mm-hmm.
different perspectives, very much so. And this one has characters. If you have seen a lot of Stephen King films or read the books, you know the sheriff character, played by Tom Skerritt, also appears in The Dead Zone,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a character that has gone through some of the books. But here, with his death, that's the reason there's a new sheriff in subsequent films, like The Dark Half and Needful Things. You get a new sheriff because of the sheriff's death in this movie. So, he uses that. King has used that Castle Rock so many
Yeah,
times.
yes.
So you're going to see it as a thread that goes throughout the different
As a town not to
movies.
visit.
Yeah, exactly. Because shit happens.
That's right.
In Castle Rock, and they have scary dogs, even though they really just want to lick you. Cujo, number 5 from 1983 on our Scary Dogs countdown. Moving it up to number 4, another favorite. Well, this is at least a favorite of mine. I don't know how
Yeah,
much
you
of a
like it better than I do.
favorite it is of yours. This is from 1976. Mysterious deaths surround an American ambassador. Could the child that he is raising actually be the Antichrist, the devil's own son? It's The Omen.
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
I was at the hospital, Mr. Thorne, the night your son was born. I saw its mother.
You saw my wife.
Its mother.
What is it you're trying to say?
His mother was a...
This is not a human child. Make no mistake.
Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, The Omen.
Well, you think about the dogs in this movie, and you think about Mrs. Blaylock's dog.
Yes.
That's the main thing.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah, because you could talk about the sort of hyena hybrid dogs, the dogs
Yeah.
that were at the cemetery, but the main
Right.
one is the Hound of Hell
Right.
that Mrs. Baylock brings home to be Damien's friend. And that's such a great scene, the first one, where, it's like the man's house, and he's like, get this dog out of my house and away from my son. She's amazing in that
the
movie.
thing. That's the thing. When you talk about the dog, you have to go right to what a great character Mrs. Blaylock was, and Billy Whitelaw,
Yeah.
who played her. And apparently, originally, the nanny character was not written that way.
Ooh.
Just a very protective kind of character. And then Billy Whitelaw just took it another direction. Man, does it benefit so much. She
Oh,
is
yeah.
so increasingly, quietly menacing.
Oh, yeah, and alpha.
Yeah.
It's like, regardless of what else he thinks is happening in his household, she's managing things.
yeah.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's great. And the dog is scary.
The dog is scary.
Yeah.
Rottweiler.
Yeah.
Again, they had a big problem with it being too friendly. all it wanted to do was lick and play with co-stars rather than threaten them. But, Rottweilers have that menacing look
Yeah, they
about
do.
them. They
Mhm.
look very powerful, and they are.
Yeah.
But after this movie, interest and ownership of Rottweilers went up.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because it really did then, I think, even in films and in TV shows. I remember from back in the day when I was a kid, whenever there was a scary dog, when Magnum was trying to break into somebody's house or something when I was a little kid, they always had Rottweilers. Everybody had a Rottweiler. Now it's Pit Bulls, of course, but at the time when I was a kid, it
Yeah.
was Rottweilers everybody's afraid of.
But beyond Mrs. Blaylock's dog, the main dog, you do talk about, you just mentioned the cemetery attack. And
Yeah.
that's a big one
It
because
is.
that's a pivotal part in the movie.
Mhm.
And it's also, I don't know if it's still on YouTube, for the close-up shots of that, they used
Oh, yeah.
a fake dog's head on sticks.
Yes.
And you can see there's some behind-the-scenes stuff when they were filming it, and it's pretty funny
Yeah.
to watch now. But of course, you watch it in the movie, it's quick cuts, quick editing, and just real close-up shots.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you
because
can't-
Richard Donner is a good director.
Yeah, and it certainly makes it scary because you know when they go into that cemetery, you know it's not going to be good.
No.
And then when you see the dogs start chasing them, you know they're gonna catch them. So that's a scary scene.
It is.
But it definitely comes back to the main Hound of Hell there with Mrs. Blaylock.
Yeah.
Very, very scary. And there's another good animal scene, not dogs, but with the baboons.
Yes, that's scary.
That
is it. And it's not like Cujo. A great deal of what makes that so effective is that they are trapped inside a car with these massive animals outside of it trying to attack them. It's really creepy.
And as I think we've talked about before when we talked about The Omen, it was interesting how they had to get what they had to do to get those baboons react that way. They tried
the dog toys. Did they use dog toys?
They didn't use dog toys or Karo syrup. They tried. The handlers thought that taking a baby baboon inside the car would really rile them up. Nope, didn't care at all. They took the alpha male of the pack, and then the baboons went crazy.
Yikes!
Yeah, and they did not like that at all, and got some really authentic reactions from Lee Remick in the car because those baboons were going nuts. Nice. And that's a scary one, too. So, yeah, I do. I think I like The Omen better than you do. I think it's pretty effective. And it also, I know you appreciate the very, very end because it just pretty much steals the look from The Bad Seed.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when Damien turns and just gives you that smile.
Oh, yeah.
I won.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not that I dislike the film. I don't. It's a great movie, and there are a lot of really amazing moments in it. And I also do think that Harvey Stevens, who plays Damien, is just perfect.
Yeah.
He's just perfect. Because in every scene, he's adorable and terrifying, simultaneously. Yeah, he's great. It's iconic. And then, of course, it's all for you, Damien.
Yeah.
There are some great moments. There really are.
And Harvey Stevens didn't really go on to have a career, but he does show up in the remake.
Yeah.
He's the tabloid journalist, which is a nice... We were just talking about that over the weekend. We were just talking amongst ourselves about movies that get remade and ones that give an actor from the first movie. Sometimes it works. Like in this instance, that's great. And other times, you're like, no, I don't want to see. Was it Joker we were talking about?
No, it was actually Blade.
Blade.
The new Blade. And Mahershala Ali is going to play Blade.
Right.
And a lot of people just think that, because we were talking about Dolomite.
Right.
And a lot of people think Wesley Snipes should still be playing Blade. And right there, immediately, if the guy who won 2 Oscars in 2 years wants to play the vampire in your movie, you say
you do
yes.
It. Yeah. Yeah,
but then people are saying, well, he should have a small part, which I disagree with. I don't think that. And then the other one we talked about was Fury Road. People said, well, Mel Gibson should have had.
No,
I disagree because Fury Road, first of all, is perfect.
It is
perfect,
and that would have, to me, that one would have broken the spell. A little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's perfect. Like I brought up Suspiria.
Yeah, the new Suspiria.
They find a part
perfect
for the original
Jessica Harper.
Yeah, that one was perfect. So sometimes I guess it's a case by case basis. Sometimes it works, and I think it works in the update of The Omen.
Yes.
Give him a little part. And even if you didn't know, you might look at his face and go, hey, that guy. So The Omen, back to the Hound of Hell, which that dog, it was never referred to by a name. You never hear it called by a name, which is kind of perfect, too.
Yeah, it is.
So The Omen, number 4 on our list of scary dogs.
And it's one of, I wanted to point out a handful of other just great one-off scary dogs. Like that's, they don't have names and they don't have parts, but they're just really terrifying dogs. And movies that do it well, Green Room.
Oh, yeah.
And Don't Breathe.
Yes.
Just 2 movies that you are definitely scared for the characters because of these dogs.
An added bonus for Green Room is how they sort of get out of the danger of the dog.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are really, just important elements of terror in those films. A couple, like that's the whole point of the film. The pack, the breed, they're not great movies, and I don't think they use them very well. And I feel like a lot of times horror films, they do themselves a better service if they use the dog sparingly, if the dog is supposed to be scary, which is why I think The Omen, Green Room, and Don't Breathe, perfect.
Yeah, really nice. So let's move up to number 3, and this is a lot more recent, from 2007. Years after a plague kills most of humanity and transforms the rest into monsters, the sole survivor in New York City struggles valiantly to find a cure. I Am Legend.
I'm not infected. I'm not infected. Please.
Nothing happened the way it was supposed to happen. 6 billion people on Earth when the infection hit. I'm a survivor living in New York City. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday when the sun is highest in the sky. God didn't do this. We did.
So if the dog isn't being used in a horror film to terrify you, it is being used to break your heart. even though I don't care for the film I Am Legend, and it's borderline horror, but it is a zombie movie.
Yep.
It is, that dog, Sam. Oh, that broke my heart. I mean, I think that's probably the most emotional moment in the entire film, and probably the best moment of acting Will Smith does in the whole movie is when that dog goes missing.
It's not just you. The death of Sam the dog was voted online as one of the saddest film scenes of all time.
Wow.
Well, it works.
You know what? They didn't see Train to Busan. No, it's great and awful simultaneously.
Because by that time you're so invested.
Yeah.
That dog is a character.
And it's everything to this man. It's all there is to this man who's now completely bereft and alone on planet Earth. Yeah, it's effective.
Yeah, the dog's name was Abby, who played Sam, and was found in a kennel. The animal trainer found Abby in a kennel just because she had the right look, had never been trained, had only just a few weeks to get her up to speed, and man, what a great performance!
So good.
On the scenes when she had to limp, they put a little piece of tape on her paw, so it was kind of made her jump up a little bit, and just really, really well done, and you could see there was a great bond between Will Smith and the dog.
You really could.
Once they got the dog up to speed with training, Will Smith went on what he called dates with the dog.
Oh.
Just to bond, and you're right, and all of that by the time you've gone through all that ordeal, it's incredibly sad.
It is.
It's incredibly sad, and it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it is supposed to be sad. I mean, it's an important growth moment, and it just breaks your heart.
What I thought was funny too about reading about Will Smith making this movie, he said they had to film a lot of it in New York City. They had to shut down a lot of streets, and that meant he got, quote, a lot of middle fingers. I don't care if you're Will Smith.
That's right.
I'm driving here. That's funny. But it's certainly, it has its moments. It's been done. It was based on a novel by Richard Matheson.
And then it was Omega Man, of course.
Omega Man with Charlton Heston was also done as in a different adaptation before that in 1964 as The Last Man on Earth with
Vincent Price. Right, yeah.
Yeah, all based on the same novel by Richard Matheson, who also wrote Duel.
Yes.
We were just talking about that the other day. So it's a time-honored story which got this very science fiction-y / horror update.
Yeah.
And it does. It has some scary, effective moments. All in all, you're right, it's not a great movie.
No.
But it has some merit.
Yeah, and you just can't leave it off a list of dogs in horror movies.
No, not at all.
Although there are a lot of tragic dogs to choose from. Snowtown Murders, that one kills me. The Babadook, oh my God, It Comes at Night, of course.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Greta, Jaws.
Pip-It!
That's right.
Pip-It!
Audition. The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah.
There are so many.
Hounds of Love.
Hounds of Love and The Wailing. I mean, there are so many just tragic dogs in horror movies.
Well, when we talked with Ben Young, when Ben Young was nice enough to call in, we talked about that scene because that was very traumatic. Not only
in Hounds of Love, for the actors.
For the actors, as for us, because it's so heart-wrenching.
Oh my God,
what
is.
you do to a dog. But then,
Aw.
that one is. I'd forgotten about that one, but shouldn't have.
No.
So I Am Legend number 3 on our list of scary dogs and sad dogs.
Definitely. Horror does not treat dogs well. It doesn't as a genre.
Because it knows you love them.
I know. It knows. Horror filmmakers know. You may not give a shit what I do to these people, but when I kill this dog, you're going to be so unhappy.
You're damn right.
That's true.
From 2014, that's where we're going for number 2. This is a movie that, have we ever talked about this? Maybe once?
We did in Mental Illness.
Okay. It's good because it's one that slips through a lot of cracks, but everybody that's seen it likes it. It's a likable guy pursuing his office crush with the help of his evil talking pets, but things turn sinister when she stands him up for a date. It's The Voices.
Do you ever hear voices?
Not really.
Jerry.
Hey, Fiona. In her eyes, you're a ridiculous peasant. Kill her, and you will discover what it feels like to be truly alive.
Don't run!
Mr. Whiskers, he makes me do bad things.
You totally stopped taking the pills, didn't you?
Mr. Whiskers! Dr. Warren! Fiona, cut it out! Pretty complicated inside the human mind, huh?
So the first thing to know is, if you haven't seen this movie, we have it in our 2020 program. So you're welcome. We are going to show it at the Gateway Film Center. And in that podcast, we're going to talk about Cats. cats.
Yes, perfect.
Cats in horror. But today we're going to talk about the dog. And the cat and the dog and the lead, they're all Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
Ryan Reynolds, he thinks that he hears his dog, who's Bosco, who's just a sweet hound, basically voice of reason, maybe a bit of a dullard, but, good-hearted. And then the cat, who's, of course, evil.
Yeah, and originally the plan was not for Ryan Reynolds to do all those voices. He had to convince the director, Marjane Satrapi, by sending her recording after recording after recording of him doing different voices, specifically tailored for each of the animals. And he said a lot of them were based on friends of his or people that he knew. But so he had to convince her. That originally was not in the plan, but it works.
Yeah, and he's great. And it's funny, I'm really sorry that the movie didn't make any money when it came out.
I know, because it got great reviews.
Yeah, and Satrapi she wrote and directed Persepolis, which is one of the greatest cinematic graphic novel adaptations ever. She wrote Persepolis, the graphic novel, based on her life. The whole thing is fascinating. And then I thought to myself, and the next thing she does is a horror movie. Yeah. Hooray! And it's so good. And it's got such a great cast. So it's not just Ryan Reynolds, Gemma Arterton, Anna Kendrick, Jackie Weaver. I mean, it's really, and it's touching and subversive and funny and sweet. It's really good.
Yeah, before it even got made, it was one of those that was named on a blacklist. The blacklist is the list of the most liked unmade scripts of that year. This was on the blacklist from 2009. And then once it did get made, now at the time, Ryan Reynolds was not the star that he is today, but still.
But 2009, I mean, he was a star.
Yeah, he was. But it just was one of those head scratchers because it had the cast, it had very positive reviews, it had good word of mouth from everybody that did see it, but yet no one really went to see it.
No, I think it didn't have really wide distribution, and it didn't have any kind of marketing because we would have seen the marketing.
Yeah.
And it would have played Columbus, and it didn't.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it's going to be on our Fright Club,
right?
Because I think that's a perfect movie for what a lot of times you and we try to do is reintroduce these movies. And I think there's going to be a lot of people there that night. I'm hoping that haven't seen it that are going to be sort of like Train to Busan the other night. The people that hadn't seen Train to Busan after it was over came out of there like, man, I love that movie.
You can't not love that movie.
Yeah,
it's impossible not to love Train to Busan.
I think the same thing is going to happen here. So I'm really glad that we're going to get it up there because it's also weird when you look at it, even if you watch the trailer, to call it a horror movie.
Yeah. Although it is, a lot of people die. A lot of people die. There's a lot of blood in this movie. You know what? I just really want to quick, here, just the top of my head, the movies that a lot of people didn't see, but because a lot of times people will come and God bless you for doing it. You take a risk and you come and you leave and go, I can't believe they put me through this, right? And we apologize for those. But the ones everybody has loved and not a lot of people have seen, Juan of the Dead. If you haven't seen it, see it.
Yep.
Was everybody loved it and nobody had seen it. And the last horror movie, which is actually really hard to get, but everybody loves it and nobody had seen it. And the lead reminds me of John Taylor from Duran Duran. So if you're a Duran Duran fan, it's a extra reason to see it. Train to Busan, but don't see the voices yet. Come see it with us.
Yes. So we'll keep you posted on when that is going to be. That's going to be part of the 2020 calendar for Fright Club at Gateway Film Center. So that is our number 2, and we also want to talk about one more talking dog.
And this is not really a horror film, but it's a horrifying film, A Boy and His Dog.
Yeah, Don Johnson.
Yeah, and that's the main character is the talking dog, Max.
Yeah.
And horrible things happen in it, and it's maybe the most misogynist movie that isn't a porno ever made. But it's still, it's smart.
Yep.
It's hard to watch, but there is a talking dog who's really well done and is the main character of the movie.
There you go. Boy and His Dog gets a mention. As we move up to number 1, you could probably guess it maybe, in our list of scary dogs from 1982, a research team in where? Antarctica is hunted by a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of its victims, the Thing.
I know I'm human. Some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to, but it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You guys gonna listen to Gary? He can beat one of those things!
Here is something that I don't know. We've talked about this movie 300 million times because it's just genius and it shows up in so many lists.
Yep.
But here's something that I don't think we've ever mentioned before, and it always reminds me of you. Bill Lancaster wrote The Thing, the screenplay for this film, and he only did one other movie. He did a franchise. Bad News Bears.
Yes.
That's 2 for 2 right there, my friend. You can, that's you. If you write The Thing and the Baz News Bears, you can just hang it up. You can go, I can't go anywhere but down from here. I'm done now.
Man, did I love the Bad News Bears when I was a kid. Oh, man. That's great. Yeah, that's a career.
That's a career.
Nicely done, my friend. In this one, of course, you talk about the dog. You start talking about dog/thing because that comes to play. But there's that great moment early on when the dog wanders down the hallway and pauses outside the door, and we see the shadow of someone beckoning the dog to come here. And John Carpenter, this is another case of one of those details that directors are consumed with, and I think you would look at it and go, what does that matter? He made sure that the person whose shadow that was not one of the main cast members, just so no one would know. No one in the audience would go, oh, I know who that is.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, John Carpenter is clearly a genius as a filmmaker. And although Halloween, we love Halloween, everybody loves Halloween, it's an incredibly iconic and important film, this is his best movie. Everything about this movie is so incredibly well thought out, and it's such a great combination of everything he had done in the past because he hadn't always done horror. So it brings in a lot of the sort of very male-dominated action film kind of stuff that he was doing, and obviously the horror stuff. And it's just such a perfect. And it moved sci-fi into an uglier direction than we'd ever seen before. So it fit the time period as well. It was really groundbreaking.
And that's why it's so funny to think about how it didn't get the credit when it came out.
No. You know what's interesting? Hellbent for Horror.
S.A. Bradley.
So S.A. Bradley of Hellbent for Horror.
Yeah.
He has a book, and it's great.
Oh, yeah.
And he has this great segment. He went to see that movie, The Thing, John Carpenter's, when it came out with his dad, who was a major fan of the original Thing from Outer Space.
Thing from Another World.
Sorry, Thing from Another World. And his dad and everybody in the theater hated John Carpenter's The Thing. They hated it. They were so mad. And S.A. Bradley, he talks about how it's because it didn't do anything they wanted it to do. The good guys don't come out on top. And, everything about it was very political and very of that moment. And those people weren't used to science fiction doing that. And they wanted to see this cherished memory from their childhood that they wanted to share with their children. And it's a fascinating take on that movie.
Also, it shouldn't go without saying, but what other alien came out the exact same year?
E.T.
E.T.
Yeah.
The nice, fuzzy, take you home and eat some candy type of alien. So, yeah, and there's another, it really touched every bit of the film because even the score, and the score was done by Morricone.
Yeah.
And it was nominated, the score was nominated for a Razzie that year.
Crazy.
But then get this. Some of the unused music from that score, he morphed into the score for The Hateful Eight, which finally won him an Oscar. I mean, it's
That's
just
so great.
All through this movie, it just didn't get the due
And The
until
Hateful
now.
Eight is they're so trapped by that snow. What a perfect next movie to use that stuff for. Yeah. And we're supposed to be talking about the dog.
Yes.
But one of the things that set it apart, so often, like I said, the dog in a horror film is either scary, right, or tragic. And this one, it's both.
Yep.
Because when you see it's just beautiful. It's this beautiful animal, and you love it. And then I know a lot of people don't like the Mary Elizabeth Winstead
remake.
Yeah. Which is really kind of a prequel.
Right, which you don't find out. And the dog.
Until the dog.
Right.
I know, and that's my favorite moment of that film is when you see the dog running and you see the helicopter and you're like, oh my God, it's a prequel. It's so great.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that about it. I did.
Yes.
And it was okay.
It was
all right.
fine. It was.
Yeah, so it really didn't turn out. When you went to see it, we all thought it was a remake.
Right.
You find out it wasn't. And the dog, the original dog from the 1982 thing, was a Norwegian dog. It was a half wolf, half Malamute breed.
Wow, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful dog.
Name was Jed. But
I love him. What a good boy.
But interestingly enough, he was not used for that beginning chase scene where he's being shot at. That turns out to be the last scene in the other one, in the newest one, because on the DVD commentary, John Carpenter has said they used another dog and just painted it to look like Jed. Don't really know why. But the main dog was Jed. Yeah, half wolf. I love that.
Nice. I know
How
you
sweet
do.
is that? And also the dog thing. The effects all through this movie are still today looked at as very groundbreaking.
And you would never expect something to age that well.
Right.
Effects rarely do, but these do.
Yeah, and the effects were created by Rob Botten, only 22 when he started the project.
Yeah.
But he did not do the dog thing.
Oh.
He turned that over to effects legend Stan Winston.
Right.
Who declined an actual credit in the movie, but he gets a thank you. He gets a thank you in the credits because apparently Botten was just so tired. He had done so many dogs. Said, if I have to do one more mechanical dog, I'm going to go nuts. So he turned the dog thing over to Stan Winston.
Wow.
And, yeah,
Well,
pretty
good
impressive.
hands.
Yeah.
Good hands.
Good hands indeed. But you're right. All through the effects of this movie still today.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they don't look like they would look today, but they're pretty darn good.
No, I do. I think they stand up pretty
You know,
well.
this many years later, no doubt. And that's just one of the reasons why The Thing just keeps getting the credit it didn't get at the time. And I think you're right. I think it's his best movie. The Thing from 1982, The Dog Thing, number 1 in our scary dogs. Any more dogs in this kind of a category to mention?
I don't think so. I think the only dog that I haven't really discussed in any way that deserves a mention, just so that you don't make the mistake of watching it, is Zoltan, Hound of Dracula. It's so bad. It's the most boring movie in the history of movies. It's so bad.
But it made me laugh. Well, did we miss any dogs like we missed Maximum Overdrive? Let us know if you have any on your list that didn't make ours. You can always find us on Twitter. That's the easiest way. Fright Club Pod on Twitter. Also on Facebook and Instagram, it is Mad Wolf Columbus, and the main website, where you can find all of our written reviews of all the new movies that come out and our other podcast, The Screening Room. You can all find that on our main website at madwolf.com. Well, we talked about the next Fright Club Live, which is coming up on November the 13th.
Yes. You can also expect in November, we're going to cover the best horror films of the decade as we come to a close in this decade.
Man.
It's a big list.
And we were just talking the other night at home. This is going to be tough.
Yeah, it is going to be.
I mean, you talking about leaving some great movies off a list.
Well, it's funny. Without any research, off the top of my head, I have 30
Yeah.
and I don't know how to prune it.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it is.
This was a really good decade.
Oh, my God, it has been. It really, really has been. And then, of course, December we'll do the best of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. Time
Plus,
is flying.
You know, the movie we're showing in December at Fright Club Live, you chose.
Yes, American Psycho.
And people are psyched.
Bring your business cards, and we will compare and try not to let the veins pop out of our heads when somebody's is better because it has a watermark. No, I know they're excited.
They
and
are.
They should be. This is going to be fun.
It is going to be
It's
fun.
going to be a lot of fun. And I know it's one of Jen Dreadful's
That's
most
right.
favorite movies. So, Jen, if you can make it, little Christmas trip east, we'd love to have you. So, yeah, a lot to look forward to. Keep in touch if you can. And as always, until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friends.